Hey guys, BJ the Brave here, back with another episode of FORGECAST, a podcast about Warhammer 40k Warpforge. Joining me as ever, we have the Ecclesiarch. How are you, sir?
Doing great, BJ. Doing great. Everything's going quite well. Hope you've been well as well. There's too many wells in there, but
That's a lot of wells. We're all wells. However, it's not just those two guys for you today. We have been infested by and invaded by the hive mind himself. Shumatsu, how are you, sir? Welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, I am very excited to be back to Warpforge, and even more excited with recent game changes. So yeah, I've been waiting for this for quite a while. So yeah, it's finally happening for me.
If anybody's never heard, if people are new to the game and you've never heard Shumatsu before, he has been on our channel, both our channels in the past and the podcast, and I always love speaking to Shumatsu, particularly about Tyranids, because he really is the hive mind. Like, he'll experiment with decks, experiment with cards long before anyone else, and he really goes into a lot of depth and analysis. I really appreciate that. So Shumatsu and I have got a masterclass for Turvagon coming out, so definitely check out my channel for that. When you listen to this, it's either live or it'll be coming the day after, so definitely look out for that. But I'm sure we're going to get into some of that good stuff today. All right, so guys, we had a balance patch. Literally, what was it now? Two to 3 weeks ago, and I know Ecclesiarch, you
I
and I
think that's too long.
was it a week and a half ago? How long?
Yeah, I would say a week and a half. Yeah.
Week and a half, yeah. And yeah, how have you been finding it then, Ecclesiarch? Because did you, like me, did you take a little bit of a break as well?
So the moment where I actually took the break was during the whole Gene Stealer thing because the game wasn't looking too good for me. Because I love playing control more than aggro, and the whole Gennari situation was really, really infuriating. But when the balance patch dropped, there are some I started playing again. Actually, I started playing first with Astro Militarum reinforcements. Played a couple of games, tried them out, was pretty fun. And then the balance patch dropped. Now, I'm going to say a general opinion on that, then we can just get into more detail. Overall, it's good. It's good because I've been seeing way more variety in terms of play. I'm still seeing Gene Stealers, which is good because I never like it when they kill a faction with a balance patch. I've been seeing more Tyranids and more variety of Tyranids, and Tyranids have been one of my favorite parts of this balance patch. I've been seeing Orkz coming back. I've been seeing, Imperial Guard, obviously. There's Dark Angels running around. So overall, the patch is looking really good. I think the overshadowed ones are probably currently Necrons, Tau, and the Aeldari in terms of getting new stuff. But I mean, overall, I think the patch was good. There were some things that I would have wished to have been done a little differently. I'll say that later. But overall, I've been enjoying it because there's been flavor in the game, and that's what I mostly look for. Because playing against the same warlord a billion times is never fun.
Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? Like, whenever you get a patch, you tend to focus on the thing that they've nerfed, but you forget about the kind of chaos theory of that, right? Like the knock-on effect of kind of how does that impact other decks? Like, for example, Sisters, I think, are pretty good right now. Now, they went from being like the absolute meta busted deck, then they got nerfed, and they couldn't quite stand up to the top meta decks. But then because those top meta decks have now been brought down a level, I feel like Erica's in a pretty good chance. I think Junif, and actually Morven with the AoE penitent stuff is really good against the waves of AM. But yeah, it's kind of weird how that works.
All of them work pretty well currently. I've played all four of them, and it's possible to get good games with all of them. Some are stronger than the others, obviously, but overall, pretty good. Overall, pretty good.
What do you think, Shumatsu? How do you feel the game is sort of since the patch?
Oh yeah, I pretty much feel the same. Obviously my attention is mostly focused on Tyranids, and yes, indeed, a nerf to Gene Stealer calls definitely help them. Tervigon, for instance, was literally unplayable with Gene Stealer calls, and now, yes, Yeah, I think it's probably my favorite patch in the whole history of Warpforge.
Wow, that's a big, that's coming in big, coming in strong from the start.
Well,
Favorite patch
yeah,
in the
yeah,
history of the game. Yes, that's
yeah,
cool.
because it created so much variety. At first, I was thinking like, okay, so maybe it buffed, so it mainly buffed Neurothrope and maybe touch and maybe like a touch the terror and a little bit enough to do Swarmlord, but actually that the Thermobrew change was actually impactful enough to finally make a Tervigon viable. I wouldn't say like S tier, but definitely top tier Tyranid deck. I am still yet to refine the best Tyranid, the best Neurotrope deck, and this is very new experience for me because I'm used to like for so long like Tyranids have a single deck or maybe a single deck core and with just a small variations, and now finally so many cards are viable because of that sign-ups on Warlord. So changes are actually huge. I am very excited about. And for the other factions, well, yeah, I don't feel. Well, I can only speak from Tyranid's perspective, but I don't feel like there is now completely unwinnable matchups in the meta.
Mm-hmm.
So meta looks pretty good for me.
Yeah, I agree with Shuma, especially when it comes to the Tyranid variety. I was expecting a Tyranid patch a while now because they didn't really get anything for a while, and this was actually pretty good when it comes to NIDs. Especially, I'm happy with what Everguild did with Neuro because a lot of things that they did were some of the most wanted community suggestions. Like two of the things that the community have been posting a lot lately was give Neurothrope a synapse, give Neurothrope a synapse. It's lore accurate. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be interesting. And people were also saying the same about like the unstable for orcs. So like both changes made me really happy because it kind of showed that they listened. They also in parallel they also listened with the thing about HHL. Not too much about that, but let's just say they nerfed something in 3 days that people were going crazy about, which is amazing speed. That's for sure. I'm not gonna say that there are not problems over there, but in any case, so I'm happy that they listened with most of the stuff. Now, of course, I agree with Shuma. I think currently the meta is really good. There are, of course, still warlords that are S tier, but that's always going to be the case. If anybody thinks you can get a meta without an S tier warlord, you're wrong. The only thing currently that bugs me that I think could use a little bit of a change, you guys know what it is. It would be Vitus Griff. I think that card is kind of stupid, not kind of stupid, pretty stupid, and I think it could be fixed with a simple thing of making it strike into a duty, and I think it would be good. But anyway, yeah, that's the only thing that actually bugs me because otherwise, I have loved the Imperial Army reinforcements because the Armored Lightning, the Tempest to Science overall, the thing that it there's of course going to be some extremely meta Imperial Army decks, but one of the things that I love is how the reinforcements mirror the Cadian army, because like you got the Shock Trooper that's a Vanguard, but then you got a Scion that's an offense card, you got the Chimera, and then you got the Torox, which are two different things. One is like bringing out more Vanguard. The other is bringing out more offense troops. So it's really cool. I loved it, and I'm actually enjoying Hector as well.
Mm.
I'm enjoying seeing Ursula back. I'm enjoying seeing Dankler more playable, and I think Lord Solar. I mean, he's always been kind of subpar, but even then, he's pretty good because he can be the aggro face basher. So yeah,
Yeah,
I've liked it overall. Only Griff kind of killed it for me. Otherwise, it's been pretty good.
yeah. Solar's kind of missing a bit of identity, isn't he? I'd love to see him get something like the Vox operator ability, but as a
Yeah.
one-off, just a one-off, so he could really lean into the vehicles. I was just laughing when you were talking about Griff there, Ecclesia. I was just hoping to God you weren't going to say that you wanted him to be given +1 armor. So,
Only for the. Oh, speaking of which, I've yet to see that on my Terminator.
Chaos
So
Terminator, what's going on?
I'm.
12 months now you've been asking for this change. When's it gonna
I,
happen?
I remember I asked like more than a year for a Tariq Torgadon buff in HHL, and it happened after a year. So I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up on that.
What do we think you talking about, like how there's a lot of variety? I definitely am seeing a lot of variety too. And I agree with you as well. I think the actual release was pretty cool. You had a faction that was, I think, the weakest at the time, and the cards were very good at kind of bringing them up to a kind of competitive level without being broken, and also adding variety ways of play. If you take away that legendary card, I mean that Griff card, I mean I don't know what else to say. It's ridiculous. It's beyond
Mm.
broken. But if you took that card away, it would have been a very nice expansion, I
Amazing,
think.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the Valkyrie drop, by the way, because lately Everguild have been doing that a lot in HHL, and I'm happy they've integrated that in Warpforge. To tell you what I mean, all of the factions got this kind of an air support thing at 3 or 4 energy that deals around 3 damage and gives an extra effect. Like Shuma would know, like in Iron Warriors, for example, it reduces troop ability cost. Like with Thousand Suns, it gives you psychic powers. So basically, this is a really cool thing. Like just destroying something and then dropping a Scion, I think is a pretty cool deal. It's a really cool card, and Ursula being able to generate more of those is kind of what pulled her up after like her being dragged down because of the nerf. Because suddenly she became unplayable because she got nerfed. Some of the Astra Militarum stuff got nerfed, so then they suddenly disappeared from the game. But now they're coming back, and it's fun because I love Guard. It's my one of my favorite factions, so I love to see that.
For sure.
And yeah, Griff is disgusting, but it's not disgusting to a level where every time I face Guard, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I'll lose. No, it's never like that. Yeah, sometimes it can swing a game that it was not supposed to swing, but it's not nearly as bad as, for example, playing versus Janari or playing versus the Prime Junith thing, right? Or the Predator Annihilator. You got things you can do against it. So yeah, I think it's tolerable for now, and I think probably it's getting nerfed next patch. So
Well,
we'll deal with it.
let me
The
know.
good outweighs the bad in this case. So I'll
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure,
And
go on.
I would like to add that yes, for example, Tyranids can deal with grief almost perfectly with Ravenous Hunger. That is
Mm,
exactly 6 energy, and you will even heal a bit the damage you probably took from the guy she spawned. So yeah, it feels quite unfair in terms of amount of value one
mm,
card provides, but you definitely can play around it.
yeah.
And I would maybe disagree on that. It should replace its strike with duty. I think just nerfing it HP, just
Mm,
stats, because my problem with it will, it is very powerful flanker, but it also quite tanky for
mm-hmm.
having flank and flying. So I would like it not survive some of the traits. Like if you build up your board a bit, so you should be rewarded for that, for like, and not just be ready to like
Yeah.
reset just because that card comes down.
Yeah, that's a good one as well. Just nerf the HP so that it cannot just freely trigger strike every single time, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
What do we think?
that's pretty good.
So, kind of got two questions, but they're back on Tyranids. Maybe start with you, Shu. What do we think about the nerf to Swarmlord? That's a big one, right? That's a really big one. And then, do we think that Neurothrope is like I feel like this ability, which has always been so obvious to everybody just from the lore, I feel like it's like a really interesting new direction for warlords because is it like the most synergistic ability on a warlord in the game now? Like obviously, what I mean is like pick guard, you've got duty, right? That's a mechanic that exists on the cards themselves, and then they put that on the warlord, and that was quite unique in itself when they first did that, right? The sisters, similar thing, but like, it's really just substituting attacking, which warlords could always do. Whereas, like, I feel like with synapse, that genuinely is like such a specific, unique thing that's linked to the card. And now a warlord has that. It doesn't have to do anything, doesn't have to stop attacking, doesn't have to pay any energy, and it really synergizes. There is a downside, right? That some of the strats only can target troops, so therefore you can't put that on the Neurothrope. So it's not all singing, all dancing. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it like super one of the most synergistic abilities in the game on a warlord? Shu, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, I will start with the Neurothrope. Yes, definitely. Well, personally, I did not expect AGE to ever make that change because it completely changes how faction works. The whole synapse troop, synapse enabler troop, and normal value troop. This whole like composition, it changes just because of one warlord, and it is well, it is definitely quite unique, and I'm very excited that they are finally making these changes. Yeah, as I said before, I am still searching. I am still looking for different builds, and so much things work with the Neurothrope now. It's yeah, it's really amazing. And what I wanted to add, it's not quite broken because Neurothrope having 35 HP, he has clear weakness, and even that emissary combo, it has like if you're facing a very aggressive players, like something like new Eldar warlord that will stun you, and obviously the orc one. If you are facing early aggression, you will just die before you can make use of that emissary value. So Neurothrope, while gaining a lots of new unique utility, he retains his weakness and Tyranids still have literally only one good Vanguard card. That is the Tyrant Guard.
Iron Guard, yeah.
So yeah, it is definitely very interesting change. And regarding Swarmlord, yeah, it is very good change, but I don't think it will destroy Warlord. Because it will definitely hurt the face aggro variants of Swarmlord, but I don't think it will impact my favorite build, the big synapse, when you build up your board and buffering, so it's like mid to mid late game. And I also like the reason I'm not worried at all because I actually played Swarmlord I played it since season 0, and we all remember how much burst ultramarines had in season 0. So it's like I'm back to that season. It's literally the same. Like I'm having a little less HP, so I have to be more careful. I have to consider maybe even putting some camouflage in my deck if sunburst factions are popular in meta. So yeah, it is definitely a good change that will promote even more like variety within faction, because like I think many Tyranids players would agree that Swarmlord was definitely like taking all the spotlight for the faction. It was ridiculous. You could literally build anything on him, like, and even other warlord archetypes, like the best aggro. So he was taking the place of Terror, who was supposed to be the Terror, who was supposed to be face bashing type, and and the best board building, and even the best. Well, the archetype itself wasn't very good, but best spore synergy, because you could actually buff spore assist, and even the swarm builds. I was experimenting with them a lot before the end of previous season, and actually found that overwhelming infestation combo that I recently used. That we recently used in our Terragon video. So yeah, it was all Swarmlord, and now while he like he still has his his own things, and the Maleceptor buff, they also help specifically him.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a good change. I am very
Okay.
happy to see
So
it.
you're happy with the 35 health overall? So you think the board building deck that you've always done, the big sign-ups, that's still good. The stealth aggro is less effective. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I wasn't sure what to make of it. They needed to tweak something on Swarmlord. The main thing I don't like about the 35 is more from a lore perspective. Like, how the heck is this ginormous Swarmlord only 35 health? But you know, it just, I don't know. It feels like it should be 40. But no, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So you say now, Shumatsu, that you're not sure whether the Neurothrope, what the kind of premium Neurothrope build looks like. What are some of the
Yeah,
things
definitely.
what are some of the ways you want to try it? And also, Ecclesia, I know you've released a Neurothrope video, haven't you, and used it in the tournaments and stuff. So I guess both of you really, what are your thoughts on what the build might look like and what's working well?
Well, I mean, I have to first agree with Shumatsu on basically what he said, everything. Because I had recently, I had a Tyranid stream, and with Neurothrope and Swarmlord mostly, and we absolutely stomped. Like, there were like 15 games, maybe 2 losses, and Neurothrope was doing extremely well there, like really really good. Then I played the Swarmlord Shumatsu Big Bug version basically, and also still doing really well. The only thing difference is what Shuma said. You got to be a little careful now. You can't just recklessly keep bashing face. First, I'll say a bit about Swarmlord. I do like the direction that they took this, because Swarmlord, in my opinion, was always meant to be like a big bug builder with his ability, and he got away with aggro too much. I think stealth aggro maybe could be a Vardengast thing now, and I am happy with the stealth nerfs overall, because I mean it's an obnoxious playstyle. I mean, okay, I dropped this, you can't kill it. Well, too bad. Now you lost. So it's better this way than it was before. So no, Swarmlord is definitely not dead, and I think Everguild actually made a very interesting nerf, because I wasn't sure how they would nerf Swarmlord, because every time they nerfed something, it was an overall Tyranid nerf, and Swarmlord was still giving 60%, and so on, and all that stuff. But here's the thing. Here's the quick thing. As for Neurothrope, I love the change, because the archetype that I really wanted to see, like a lot, was the Norn Emissary archetype. But it was never working because you never really got fast enough there. But now with Neurothrope, you can do it, and the Norn Emissaries are a threat, because you actually have a late game powerhouse that basically like your opponent is now afraid. He's like, okay, so when is it coming? It's like the Patriarch, basically, right? If you don't get rid of it, it can hurt a lot. And the buff to Apex Predator, I think, was another huge one. Now you actually have an alternative that is a ranged buff instead of melee buffs, because Tyranid did have a lot of melee buffs, but didn't have the ranged buffs, so it's really good. I would say, from what I'm seeing, I don't know what the premier Neuro build is as well. I got some builds in there. Some of them are working really well. In the tournament, I'll be honest, I struggled a little bit. In the first one, I failed to take wins with it against Mindgraph. In the second one, I'll not spoil, but I had a couple of Neuro games in there as well. Overall, he seems like solid A tier to me. It's hard for him to deal with the top tier decks, but he can do it. And otherwise, he's pretty good on ladder. Like, if you want to climb with Tyranids, he's a solid choice overall. So I've been loving it. I've been loving Swarmlord as well. When I played Swarmlord, I swear it just felt the same. It was the same thing. I was just thinking a little more before just hammering the enemy's face. That was the only difference for me. So yeah, I believe overall I am quite happy with it.
Yeah, and I would like to disagree with you a bit on Neurothrope
Go on.
being weak before the patch, because when meta report dropped and I saw the win ratio, I was actually very excited because I was like, all right, let's try to make work literally the weakest warlord in game. And it was Neurothrope, of course, yeah. And I actually had a decent amount of games before the patch, and with that horrible Astra Militarum a legendary in play, yes. And it was actually, well, at first it was quite miserable because I was trying to make all the things. I tried to use all the things that look like they were Neurothrope cards, like Psycho Page or the Sporosis energy. But then I kind of figured that if you just try to take a core of a big Synapse build, but you adjust your curve a bit, so you would always try to use your talents, and you actually add a Hive Tyrant as an additional win condition, and that deck was actually working quite well. I wouldn't call it like I wouldn't say it's on the level of Nerf Swarmlord, but definitely like half a tier below it. Because Neurothrope definitely has some very interesting advantages over Swarmlord. Like, for instance, it's almost immune to acid rain because you are getting way more from that offense. So your opponent will think twice before activating, and acid rain is absolutely huge in terms of how it hurts my favorite big bug play style. So yeah, I would say that Neurothrope win ratio was that low not because he was weak, but because he was quite difficult to build and operate. I see a pattern with literally all the Tyranids warlord. Their optimal play style is not intuitive at all. So yeah, you kind of have to constantly like not having. I think if we if we compare it to HHL, they are definitely look like Iron Warriors, where you constantly have to think a couple of terms ahead and constantly be developing board. And the thing about Neurothrope, what made him weak is compared that Neurothrope was even more that than a Swarmlord, because Swarmlord could just survive first couple turns thanks to his huge built-in clear ability, that 3 melee and obviously HP pool, and then you just drop good value stuff on 5 and 6 energy, and you will start using your very expensive talent later. So you have like a finishing curve at 7 when you drop a zone drop and buff and later. So yeah, so in a way it was actually quite straightforward if you think about it. You just drop drop a good value stuff, and then you buff them. And with Neurothrope, you can't really do that. You have to constantly thinking about how do you like do some mini combos with your card. How do you well, how do you squeeze maximum value from your current hand and constantly think about your next turn and turns about that. It wasn't completely new experience for me. It reminded me of the times once again in season 0 when we were facing incredibly powerful ultramarine meta. So you have to squeeze everything out of faction to just to survive. So that remind me the Neurothrope gameplay remind me of that time, but it was definitely doable. And now is I wouldn't call it easy mode because well there were still things that can hurt you. Well, like I mentioned before, powerful early aggression, and yes, and I would also like to agree on Apex Predator. That card is probably it's probably second most impactful. Well, after the Neurotrope change itself, I would say first one is Neurotrope. Well, maybe second and third are Thermobrood and Apex Predator because they affect so many things about themselves. And also, I would like to add that Apex Predator is not quite an alternative to Adrenal Surge or like your finisher because it is not finisher. It is it is essentially your board development card. At first, I was thinking like maybe it's a bit too expensive still, like 4 energy, and you like have to have a good board for it. So I was thinking it is only good for Neratro Norn Emissary deck because it will progress it. But actually, if you think about it, if you're using a troop that has more than 3 HP and you attack enemy with more than 3 attack, you essentially using one card to play enhanced organism that will give you 3 HP and buffed adrenal surge that will give you 3 ranged attack instead of 2. All that in one card. So it's a sense. So not only it allows you to develop a board while clearing your opponents. So this is exactly what the Tyranids want the most. It's also is very card efficient, and Tyranids they don't have. Well, they don't struggle with the card advantage that much if your curve is a little bit high, but still it is very nice to have card efficient card. So yeah, definitely it is one of the key cards for Tyranids. I think it will. I'm actually using it in all my Tyranid decks now, even in Tervagon and Swarmlord, because it is just that good. So much value packed in just one card. And even if you're just using it on your Warlord, it's not that bad. For Swarmlord, you can finally get a good ranged attack, and because your HP was nerfed, so it's extra nice to save some HP. For example, Dark Angels have some very high ranged attack flyers, and you can actually remove them without taking too much damage. So yeah, this is very impactful cards.
That's really
I would
interesting.
definitely say one of the most. in this patch.
Yeah, I really need to test Apex more. I don't know if you've tested that card much, Ecclesia. I definitely want to test it more. And I also really interested in what you were saying, Shumatsu, there about how, like, the counterintuitive style, right? So this was, for example, on the screen, this was the deck that you built with me just before the patch. And you can see, everybody can see here, we had things like the Sporosis and this, that, and the other. So, but you're actually saying you think the optimal build is actually not around doing that, right? So, why do we get your thoughts on the Apex card, Ecclesiarch, and for a bit of funsy, why don't we like evolve your old brew, your old new brew, Shumatsu, into a post balance patch brew that we all think would be good? How about that?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Cool.
Honestly, Apex Predator for me has been one of my favorite cards. Like, if we did the card of the week, I would name it that because, like, it really did fill up one of the biggest holes in the Tyranid arsenal, especially when playing Swarmlord, for example, because you were struggling with those high ranged attack troops and flyers, especially. Not the high ranged attack troops, sorry, flyers mostly were struggling a lot, and now you actually have an answer for that. And if you're playing Neurothrope, you can just use Synapse on it, and you can just, let's say you have a Tyrant guard on the board, right? And somebody drops a big flyer with range attack, and your Tyrant guard is suddenly crippled. Now you can use it and you can destroy it, which is super. I think that it's been really good. It has won me countless games. And like even at the tournament, I was like, when am I gonna draw it? When am I gonna draw it? Because it really is a game winner. It's a very good one. It's a very interesting invulnerability because I think it's currently the only invulnerability in the game that lasts only that turn. I think every faction has an invulnerability until the next turn now. For example, with Eldar, you got the Knight. With Imperial Guard, you got Nork. The Shield of Humanity, Demonic Pact, everybody has it. This is the only one that currently lasts that turn, and that's what made me skeptical. But now I understand that this is really good. This is how it's supposed to be. It doesn't need to last until the next turn. So yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
Built in a
Also, minor thing is when your invulnerable unit attacks enemy with concussive, it will not actually get stunned because it will not take damage. So that is also quite important versus, a couple. I think it mostly versus orcs. Usually orcs can, if they use that healing and giving warlord concussive card, they will usually just buy you time, and now they are just taking damage regardless. So that is very nice. And also your Ravenous Hunter range will also increase because your troops can actually survive attacking once versus high attack. That one.
Yeah,
Yes. So your troops can actually survive making a double attack. So as a side effect, it definitely also buffed a Nero Tyrant because you have one more card that you can double, and it will give a pretty good damage boost for your finishers or like extremely good traits.
Right.
So yeah, definitely one of the most impactful cards right now.
Okay, so let's have a go then at just updating Shumatsu's old new brew, a new brew. So I guess the cards to cut from this, we would be cutting the Sporosis Shumatsu and the Entanglement.
Well, yes and no, because you can definitely still use a Sporocyst right now. It's still a quite good card, even for Norn. because you still want to like weave in your talent each turn, and it will provide pretty good value. But yes, we can definitely remove it, and I would I would also like to remove, yeah, toxic entanglement. It is unfortunately one of the trap cards for Tyranids. It is just too. I used it a lot, and I was never impressed with it. Even like in best case scenario, it's just too expensive for what it does.
What it does.
And it is counter, and it is not synergistic with the Neurothrope because you want to use your talent on yourself instead of pinging.
You still keep the Hive Tyrant in this?
Yes, I think I would because it is additional win condition. So while having Norn Emissary as like a huge finisher is nice, you still, the more win conditions you have, the better. So if you and sometimes you can sometimes your emissary will eat direct removal, and then you drop Hive Tyrant, and vice versa. So yeah. Also, I would I would remove a second Sporocyst and Hardened Biology because it is it's less useful as you cannot cast it on your Warlord.
And what about the Node Beast? Now that we've got, obviously, Neurothrope himself having the synapse, would you still keep Node Beasts?
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to say that it is one of the cards I am actually thinking about removing, and I did remove it in my current build because you don't. Yes, you don't really need that signups anymore, and the stats, while they're nice, you can just run a Lictor, for example. And yes, and same goes for Node Beast. And for one energy Nerogond, I don't remember me running. Ah, yeah, yes, it is not in current build. So yeah,
That frees up 5 cards.
We can also drop a second Spore Assist and even Tyranid Prime.
Really, you would drop Prime? Prime is a beefy unit. I thought we were saying that still play well static.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, we could use it. Yeah, we'll see later. Yeah. So we created.
I mean, if you think we drop it, we drop it. But I was just thinking, like, the Prime is good, isn't it? Just dropping it as a statted 4-drop, right?
Yeah, it is.
Whereas the Node Beast, when you drop that on 4, if you're not needing it for synapse, it's actually not that. It's not a very well statted card, and it can get cheated.
Well, it has 6 HP, so it's kind of
it's higher HP than cost.
Yeah, and it has some synergy with Infinite Bio. Because if
true,
you, for example, but yeah. All right, so
what 6 cards do we think are better then than what we dropped? You said Apex.
Well, first, yeah, definitely Apex Predator.
2 copies?
Yes, definitely. They are very good. And if we scroll a bit, I actually removed a Hive Grown from my deck because my 6 energy play was Zone Drop and my talent, but now it can definitely go back, being a very good.
It's 1 or 2?
One of the best. Definitely 2.
Okay, that leaves us 2 slots left.
Yeah, and for the last 2 slots, we
have
the.
Yeah. For the memes.
Yeah, it's kind of the. Well, I don't actually sure about Carnifex because Psychopage is probably a little bit better than Carnifex right now because if you draw it late game, it will provide you some extra value with your energy. But for our deck, I think so. Our options are we could add some cheap, yeah, some cheap early game unit like Biowar, or maybe even Mucalid Spore, because a new Genestealer Warlord can no longer just snipe it. Or another very good option would be just Bounding Leap, because we can just use it on ourselves. Or best case scenario, if we have like early Genestealer, so we can deal up to 4 damage with a splash.
Okay, so Shoes put a few options in there, Ecclesiarch. The one I would throw in the ring, and then you tell us what you would spend on these two.
Sure.
The other one I really like, I've started to really like. I can't remember which deck it was that got me on this, but in Tyranids, I've started to really like having one copy of Von Ryan's, and the reason is that it's actually what Shumatsu said earlier, which is it's another alternative win con, right? Like you get to turn 8 and you drop this down as a 10 drop in stealth, and it's just another, you know, another late game finisher. And of course, if you do get it on 4, it's still very good at trading on 4 and keeping the board in the game. So that would be my consideration in addition to choose. What would you do here in terms of your last two?
Well, one of the things that I've been using a lot because I found it really good is actually Ambush Predator. So scroll up. Like one copy of Ambush Predator is what I've been using quite a bit because currently you can target Neuro himself with that and your adjacent units, which means when you, for example, drop your your emissaries and you target your warlord with this, it's nuts because your opponent suddenly can't really remove it anymore because emissary is exceptionally difficult to remove, like very, very difficult because it has high health and armor. And it really just puts you there in terms of that. Now, otherwise, it's also pretty good because if you're playing against, let's say, ultramarines like Titus, for example, and so on, it also works really well because what you do there, what happens basically, is that you end up protecting yourself from Wailing Doom, from Death from Above. So you are essentially protecting yourself from a lot of otherwise very scary threats, right? So it's a big deal
Yeah,
for
definitely.
me.
I even used to run that card on Swarmlord in Season 0 because of the Ultramarines
Mm-hmm.
direct damage range. So yeah, it is definitely a very good option. I would even consider just putting in 2 of those because you really want to protect your Norn. There are many options of direct removal and even stuns. So ideally, you want to drop it under stealth, or maybe use a predator instincts to give it flank to instantly gain value from it, because it is not invincible. And versus us through militarum, especially, it will get stunned by science.
The only concern I've got looking at the curve is if we miss Gargoyle or Stealer in our
Yes. Yeah.
opening
Yeah.
mulligan,
Yes.
we
Yes.
don't have really anything until turn 5.
Yeah. We could also. Yeah. That is the reason we could add Adrenal Surge, or maybe even Augmented Ferocity for early clear and some advancement on our emissary cost reduction. So yeah, also having Apex Predator makes early game a little bit more doable because we have 5 damage and preserve some HP while we making that attack. So yeah, Adrenal Surge. I think
So
probably
we're
2 of
looking to keep
them.
that in our opening hand. Then we're treating that as an early game unit. So we're just looking to
Yeah,
clear.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it also progresses our synapse number for Nom.
Yep.
So overall, it's looking something like that.
Yeah, but like I said previously, there are many ways you can build Neurothrope. I'm also testing Harpy for example as another good one,
Mm-hmm.
and it is quite good drop because it is also quite big and it will eat removal or like abuse the fact your
Yeah.
opponents used up his removal on emissary.
I have to say I
So
really love
yeah,
harpies. I've built a few decks with harpies and I've never ever found I've never regretted it. Like they've always been a real problem for my opponent. I love the
yeah.
fact that
If you are
regardless of what they attack or you know what they attack into or who attacks with it, it always triggers the spore mine. I think that's really great. It's a real headache.
Yeah, and if you're a little bit patient with your digestion pool, you can drop it on 5 energy, and it is extremely nasty play for 5 energy.
I kind of wonder whether it's. I mean, I personally don't like Hive Tyrant, right? Like the problem with Hive Tyrant is you drop it on 7, which is costly. It does nothing, right?
You do
And
not. No. You never drop him on 7. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
you only drop if you only drop him behind Tyrant Guard. Well, is it supposed to be or like under stealth? Yeah,
in theory, that's the problem, isn't it? In theory, you do that. In reality, you get to turn 7. Your hand, if you've got 2 or 3 cards left, and you might need to drop on tempo. A Harpy you can drop whenever you want. You can drop that on 7. Whereas a Hive Tyrant you can't. I personally, I mean, obviously, I definitely am just throwing out like some thinking here, and Shumatsu is the Tyranid god. But personally, for me, like I would rate the Harpy as the better 7 drop, and I even think Maliceptor, as there's an argument for Maliceptor over Hive Tyrant, just because again what we just said that it actually can impact the board on the turn it comes down. Of course, Hive Tyrant offers the most like value and long term. It's disgusting, but it's that pipe dream of surviving and
yes,
don't know.
you are actually correct in that regard. So Hive Tyrant is like your additional win condition, but a win condition that requires some work for it to actually activate. And yes, it is like a bit of a desperate win condition because it is so hard to pull off. But yeah, all these 3 costs are definitely viable options, and Maliceptor now having a huge melee attack and giving you additional survivability, and the Neurothrope definitely would like that. So yeah, you can go with a Harpy or Maliceptor instead of Hive Tyrant.
Maliceptor pulls out some interesting. We didn't talk about this card, but he pulls out some interesting scenarios. So, say you're playing Chaos, right, and he's got Sword of Draconum, or you're playing Gordrang or whatever, and it's like you drop Maliceptor on E8 with the hero power. Suddenly, a
Yeah.
Warlord's shielded up. He can't hit you for free. It's pretty nice. But looking at the deck that we built, I mean, I'm tempted to say, because we have quite a few 6 drops, plus we have like 5 drops that work well with the hero power. So in other words, on E6 there's lots we can do, right? Not to mention things like double gargoyle. There's a lot of things on 6. I'd be tempted to drop a crone and actually drop the Hive Tyrant and play either 2 Harpies or 2 Maliceptors. What do you think to that that version?
Well, we can
Hmm.
try to put in one of each. Since
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
and
you could do one of each.
usually I'm not a big fan of using one copy
No, me neither.
of non-tech cards, and I would strongly disagree with you on your on Von Rian Lipper, because as a
Oh, yeah.
swarm if you're running swarm troops, you want to run 2 copies just because of the possibility you suddenly boosting its attack.
Yeah, I see.
So,
Yeah,
so yeah, but
yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so Von Ryans
yeah,
doesn't make it.
Happy,
Von Ryans doesn't
yeah.
make it. What do I mean? It's difficult, isn't it? Like trying to figure out what is better, the sort of Harpy or Maliceptor. So Maliceptor's giving you better immediate protection, right? That's what that's giving you over this. You've also got a really nice thing where you do Maliceptor Predator
Hmm.
Instincts. That gives himself the shield, and then you smack something as a free trade, which is a nice combo. But Harpy gives you, I guess, like Harpy's the harder one to play around, right? He's a flyer. He's got 8 health, and every time you attack, he's putting down spores, which then they want to deal with us. But if they attack the spores, then put more spores down. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know which is better.
Yeah, yeah. And to make things even more difficult for you, I would add that Exocrine is also an option
Hmm.
right now,
One of the
especially
more exciting ones.
yeah, yeah. Especially by the time your Exocrine will drop, you probably already played your Norn, or maybe it's reduced to pretty low cost. So you don't need to use your talent alt yourself, so you can actually ping with it. And you will be making use of Exocrine, given vulnerable to enemy troops.
So here's an idea. What do you guys think to this? Controversial.
Go on.
Is double Exocrine actually better than double non-emissary?
I don't think
No,
so.
no, 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 no.
This guy's doing. Here's the argument, right? If you look at the cards that we're playing it with, let's say we were going to emissary and predator instincts, for example, right? Yeah, okay, this guy's got 12 attack damage, but the other guy's got 10. It's probably enough. It probably doesn't matter, right? That probably doesn't make a difference. The thing we're attacking with probably doesn't make a difference. But obviously the Exocrine's doing blast 5. This guy's doing blast 3.
Yes, yeah.
And on the turn it came down, it hit for the damage, so that blast is doing blast 7. Do you see what I mean?
Hmm?
So like, is the impact? I'm trying to
Oh,
imagine.
what do you mean +7?
Okay, so if we look at the Exocrine,
It does not actually ping right now. It only gives vulnerable.
it's vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yep.
if we hit this with Predator Instincts, as opposed
Oh,
to
yeah.
as opposed to doing that on the Emissary, what I'm saying is the Emissary does 3 blast. This guy does 7 blast, essentially.
I see. I see. Yeah, yeah, that does make sense. However, they are not both 8 cost energy card. Norn Emissary is incredibly powerful because it allows you to gain bonus value from all your other cards. Well, all your sign-ups buffs. So each time you play a sign-ups buff, you basically gaining 2 energy. And well, Exocrine is just a big. It is a good body with a good ability on reasonable cost right now. It is definitely playable, and I do play it in my Tervigon because I can reliably get to the late game. But yeah, I would never swap anything. I would never swap out the Norn Emissary for anything. It is a key. It is your like main win condition for Neurothrope right now.
All right, guys, that was a great little chat about the Tyranids. Let's just talk about the one other thing that got impacted in the thing, and that was the Orkz. So Ecclesiarch, like, how do you summarize the kind of Orc changes? What do you think it's done for the faction, and what are some of the fun things to try now? Do you think?
Well, when it comes to the orcs, I think one of the main things that they did is buffing the smaller boys, which now makes the orc swarm Orc Swarm archetype more viable. That's actually what I'm playing now. Right now in the tournament, I'm playing like a Gaskell with board Swarm, and it ties really well into the Gaskell ability change. Overall, I think that's a very good change because, like, if you think about where the Orcs were when the game started, it was terrible. Like, you had, for example, you had situations of Orcs either being like stupidly overpowered, like beyond all measure, or otherwise you had situations of orcs not being playable, which was almost never the case, to be honest. Orcs were always playable, but let's just say not the orcs, let's say orc warlords, right? You had Gaskell when he was literally unplayable, then you had Gaskell which when he was extremely powerful, you had the Green Horde combo, which was toxic as hell. But now I think we finally reached a place where Orc Swarm can be reliable and it can be good, so instead of being too oppressive. Now, on top of that, I think another thing that became possible, and something that I personally am very happy about, by the way, would be what? It would be the fact that we are actually able to now play vehicle orc. I think because it's no longer like it's no longer just a negative thing for you. It can actually be good as well. Because, like, if you think about it for a second, one of the biggest problems with the orcs work vehicle was that it was just destroying you because of the uh, unstable, right? Every time you would play an unstable thing, it was like, okay, take 3 damage to your board. And now it's not the case. Now it can actually destroy the enemy. So it's a big deal. Plus, some of the smaller orc vehicles received some nice buffs, let's put it like that. And honestly speaking, overall, I think it's a good one. I think overall the changes are solid. I can see more orc archetypes being playable now. I can see Grok coming back because the Gene Stealer dominance is over. And I can see Gaskell being playable. I can see Zaxtruk. The problem with Zaxtruk was that he was always kind of inferior to Gordrang. But ever since they changed Gordrang, I think you can now you can actually play Gaskell as Zaxtruk as the aggro one, and maybe Gordrang as more of a control one because he can now heal up. I don't know. Not a lot comes to my mind right now, but what I do say is that I think the orc changes were pretty good because it opens up a lot of other playstyles. Obviously, you still have the big boy orc playstyle where you can just play with your armor and healing. I think that's gonna be Gordrang's playstyle. Well, he can play with Grizzle Scarboy and stuff. I think Zag can be used for vehicles. You can also use Gaskell and Gruk for vehicles or like whiteboard. So many options, man.
Yeah.
Overall, I think orc changes are good.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to differentiate between aggro, burn, gym boss, and sort of tempo decks. I think I think Zag is better than Gordrang in the tempo decks, and that's why I think it goes
Absolutely.
really nicely with this. Not to mention, obviously, you've got unstable everywhere here, which means that sometimes those things that blow up in your face, and if Zagstruck's got armor, that also accounts for the health bonus. But it's similar.
Absolutely.
It's similar to Neurothrope. Like in my Zagmech video guide, if you've not seen that, guys, go check it out. But in that, I talked about the fact that with a tempo deck similar to Neurothrope, you still want to be developing the board. You still need to be putting your beefy units down. And so to spend 2 energy on Gordrang's ability, I find a similar thing with Belial as well. Like, it's a powerful ability on paper, but to spend 2 energy, it takes away your ability to keep up with the tempo that you're developing on the board, which is your primary purpose of the deck. Whereas when you've got a 1 energy Warlord power, I really think it's underrated. I think people miss that in tempo decks. Like, it's super powerful being able to weave in Neurothrope or Zagstruck's little 1-drop and still develop a good board. On E5 we can drop a Deathcopter and we can go off with the attack squig, you know, that type of thing. And overall across the I'd say if you were comparing Zag and Gordrang, I definitely had way more success with Zag with this type of mech tempo deck. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Ecclesiarch, that Gordrang's probably better if you're going for more of a kind of, more of a control thing now, right? With the armoring up, getting the heal every time, mainly using him a bit like the way Shu plays Swarmlord, in the sense of like using him more to remove for free with the high health as opposed to just face bashing every time. maybe that's Gordrang's thing. Although I have to say I've not really figured out Gordrang, maybe ever, but certainly not in this current meta. But I guess the last thing from me is just have to shout out the change to the change to unstable. Like the biggest thing I feel is this change. I think this change is absolutely
Absolutely.
huge. It's ginormous. Like the Squig Buggy now is legitimately better than the Veteran Stormboy in my opinion. Like the Vet Stormboy has always been my kind of like flagship, flanker. But I think now that the change to unstable legitimately makes Squig Buggy like so busted. like it's just insane because you've got the vehicle that does unstable, doesn't affect the things next to them. That's a huge change. The weakness to the Squig Buggy was always that it was yes, it came on and did its thing, but then it was easy to manipulate in terms of how you took it out. Now you've got no idea. The explosion could contribute to the thing that the Squig Buggy was doing. It could go face for damage. It could your what's it called unstable as well, right? What's it called? I forgot.
Yeah, unstable.
The bomb squig is also unstable, so you've got double unstable. So that you've gone from double predictable only hurts orcs to double unpredictable can hurt our opponent. Like that in itself is a massive, massive change. And also, I don't care if you're the best Warpforge player in the game, you still can't control it because it's RNG. You don't know for sure where it's going to go. Yes, you can minimize it, but you don't know for sure. And I think those are the types of things we're going to talk about tournaments in a minute, but I think those are the types of things as well that can give you an edge in like tournament play, right? Where you're playing against really good players, but they just can't almost control for that. Like they can't. It's hard to play around, is what I'm saying. Yeah, love unstable. I think it's really cool. Like things like a flanker coming on now. These guys are much better. Same thing. Snazwagon got really hurt when it was given unstable. Now this thing's fantastic. I think this is a really good card, and being able to flank. Kill yourself and the unit, and then the unstable hits the enemy face, gives you extra burn. Like so, it opens up all these sort of additional scenarios that it never had before, and I'm really happy with the change.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts from you, Shu, on the Orkz?
Oh yeah, while not playing orcs myself, I definitely face them on ladder and in high echelons of it quite a lot. And I would say most dangerous right now is still Godrang. His gym boss. Well, maybe it's just most dangerous for my decks, but his Jimbo's play style, it's definitely still viable, and all these changes to unstable actually make him deal even more damage. And even if he takes some backlash from it, he still can heal a lot. So it is definitely the most dangerous to face on ladder for me. But yes, I also do see Zag and Obvious and other ones. So yeah, but I wouldn't say that orcs are like top of the meta right now.
No.
Maybe like second, maybe third from the best. Sure, if you're lucky with unstable, you will definitely destroy your opponents, but yeah, I wouldn't call them oppressive, so maybe that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but maybe Bomb Squig is a little bit overtuned, just the amount of damage it deals.
Yeah, the bomb squig.
Yes, Squig, yeah, it's...
Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, from my perspective, these are all definitely very good changes. Like, orcs can go quite well. The faction, the diversity definitely went up, and most importantly, unstable change. It made them more lawful. Like they are definitely
Mm-hmm.
more orky. Like with all the crazy RNG of tabletop. Oh yeah, this is definitely a good change.
Yeah, so something like this as a gym boss build.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, definitely. I
armoring
would
up,
like it.
healing, and exploding everywhere. And I agree. I think not the grot bomb, the bomb squig is insane now. Super good. One thing I would say about the meta with Orkz. So here's my Gazgul tournament deck, which we'll talk about in a bit. This is particularly good against Astra Militarum. So it's designed in a way that combos, you've got lots of combos to counter what Astra Militarum are doing. I mean, obviously you've got things like Will of Gork, right? They've always been good against anything really. And of course you've got the no mucking abouts for the tanks, but particularly countering the go wide boards with double crump the gits. Stormboy Strike is a really nice counter to their kind of go wide, and especially in Gazgul where you can even buff those things to having 4 a 4 melee, or just drop Makari and obviously get buffs that way as well. Similarly, we've got a little bit more proactivity. This is something me and Sliver have like figured out in the Gazgul control. Rather than going down a fatigue route, we're just bringing in a little bit more proactivity. So things like Hornhelm Boys actually pretty good here, because again we are running the double crump de gits, and this thing scales well, right? Like if we need to drop something on 3 to keep up with tempo, we've got it. But also if we get this, if we need to play it on 6 or on 9 or even 11 with crump de gits, so it scales well through the game. And similarly, we were running the Storm Boys, but we actually dropped the Storm Boys recently to put in the where's it gone? The Deathcopters. And the main 2 reasons for that: one is Griff, because that card just busts Stormboy so badly, it's unbelievable. But again, like the scalability of Deathcopter, right? It's a viable 4-drop, just like you play 2 Stormboys on 4. But it also scales very well if we get to play this thing on 6 with the defense card, right? Because obviously the defense card makes this cost 2 left, the riggers, so you can play this out on 6, or even better, obviously in the late game, where you can use it as a cheeky finisher actually with the new 2 pings. You can get a little bit of extra face damage from it as well. So yeah, so I do think that this, in this specific meta, is very high. If it's not tier 1, it's like top of tier 2 in this meta, because it plays so well on Astra Militarum. But yeah, I would agree with you overall, Shumatsu, that Orkz are probably, as a faction, they're probably tier 2 at the minute. Yeah.
No, he's back. He's back.
He's back. Oh yeah, and the changes to unstable, they definitely punish opponent going wide, so that's extra power versus Astra Militarum.
Yeah, exactly. When you trigger an unstable, if your opponent has more units than you have, then statistically more likely to hit one of their units, not yours, right? So, yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
All right, so obviously we are looking ahead. We've got some weird content drop, which we're not really sure what that is at the minute, right? It sort of says new content. Any guesses, Ecclesiarch, what you think's coming? There's a picture of an orc on a squig.
This time I honestly have no idea what to say. It's like a very weird one for me personally. Because, I mean, it could mean so many things, right? It could be like so many things that it's really hard to say. It can be a reinforcement drop. It can be a new event. It can be like a combined reinforcement drop. Maybe it's like 2 factions in one. Maybe it's a new warlord. Maybe it's like a sub-faction that we've all been dreaming about. Like, it's very, very, very hard to say. And I doubt anyone at this point can really say what it's going to be. So
maybe new game mode even, because content could be anything.
Possible.
Please be spectator mode. Please, dear God.
Oh yeah, and speaking of things I really want to see in game is definitely more Forge levels, because
well, one day Shumatsu.
Yeah, I've been asking for that for a while. As a very dedicated one faction player, I would really like to. I would like more incentive to spend more money on bundles for that faction.
Oh my god, yeah. If this new content is every faction gets 20 new cards, and you can spend 100 quid and get them all, you can take my money. I will happily do that. I'm hoping it is something like, if it's not a game mode, I am hoping, like you said, Ecclesiac, that it's a new way of releasing new content, because I think the reinforcement thing is quite stale. I love new factions, but I think the reinforcements are just a little bit slow and a little bit stale, and I wondered whether it was like a narrative-driven thing. It could be like a campaign-driven thing where you get, it's the set around a narrative, like a battle. So it's Orkz versus something, and you've got cards that come out on both sides. It could be that. Not sure.
I mean, it looks like snake bites. That's one thing. Like, so we'll see what it's gonna be. I guess should be around the corner. So
yeah, it could be like some alternative to raid mechanics.
yeah.
So
Also
a bunch of
possible.
new cards and the new ways to acquire them.
Hopefully not too long before we find out, and then I think after whatever this is, we've got a new faction. So things are looking up. The future is looking a little bit brighter. It has been felt a little bit slow from my perspective, but obviously the bounce patch helped. Now, one thing that is new, one thing that has recently happened this month and literally started a few days ago, we have had launched the first of the big community tournaments called the Warpforge Open. Now, guys, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the official Discord, and in there you will see a channel called Tournament Lobby, and all of the information with the rules and the communities talking about it, you can go and check that out. You can also see Ecclesiac's channel, my channel, where we've posted some of the games that we've already played. What are we talking about? We're talking about a tournament, guys, where we have anywhere between 40 and 60 odd players every month. And what happens is you get put into a group stage, which means you're guaranteed, even if you lose 3 games, you get guaranteed to play 3 games because you play every person in your group. And then the winners of each of the groups go through into a knockout stage. Now, again, EG, if you're watching, once we have spectator mode, this gets a lot better. We can actually stream and commentate and do normal stuff. But at the minute, we're all having to be tech wizards to try and figure out how we would do the streaming. But at least from a playing perspective, it gives us something new to do, a different way of playing. What do you think, Ecclesiarch, and how have you found it as someone who's actually participating?
It's fun. It's really fun. It really gave me more incentive to play, because one of the things that Warpforge is, I've had a lot of players like give me a question like, Ecclesiarch, I play both HHL and Warpforge, and Warforged looks prettier. It has more and more factions now, but somehow I cannot have the same fun. What's the issue? And every time we discussed, we found out there's only 2 issues. One is the absence of tournament scene complete, and the second one is the absence of any alliance wars or alliance rewards. However, EG have stated both to have plans for both, and I do hope that the tournament scene is knocking at the door, because this one has been really amazing. Because ever since it started, I've been like so excited, like theory crafting, making decks, participating. So it's a huge incentive for me to play. So yeah, it's been really fun. Had 2 opponents for now. Had some awesome games, and all's well that ends well. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your 3rd game. Yeah, I completely agree with it. Like, it's just injected a different angle, right? A different angle, thinking about lineups. And also the community as well have come to light around it. So there's been loads of chat about it, lots of talk, lots of excitement and stuff. I really think it would be cool if we can get to that point where we can build like a season around that tournament. So every month you have the Warpforge Open. If you qualify like to the knockouts, you get a point. If you get to if you win it, you get more points. Like a kind of scale of points. And then at the end of the season, you could have a world championship where the 16 players with the most points across the thing go through to a world championship knockout, hopefully with some sort of prize and stuff. So that was when we were we have like a planning community, and when we were discussing it, that's some of the ideas, some of the vision that we were sharing for it. But obviously, this is just the start. We got the first one out, so definitely go and check out our channels. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring you some commentary of the semi-finals and final. That's something we're hoping to, if we can figure it out technically. But you can at least see the games that Ecclesiarch and I are playing for now. All right, guys, so I think that brings us to pretty much towards the end. Is there anything else anybody wants to add before we sign off? You missed?
Not yet, but there will be a lot to talk about after the tournaments. And
Yes.
Look forward to that, boys.
So that's a great steer. So in the next episode, guys, we are going to do a full tournament review. We're going to have some members of my alliance, the Collegium Magistrorum, and maybe some players from around the community who played in the tournament. So we're going to have a bit of a roundtable review of kind of what the experience was like. So look forward to that in the next episode. Shu, anything from you wanted to add?
Oh yeah, yeah. Maybe a little personal announcement. Like, I'm actually so this change to the ladder. Well, it's actually quite old for you, but it's new for me. I mean, the separation of your score into 4 factions. So yeah, I was thinking, how could I adapt to the change, me being like a single faction player, and I actually made my own alliance for dedicated the Tyranid players. So we will not be competing on the usual ladder, but I am trying to gather people who just like their names on the Tyranid faction leaderboard. Game itself doesn't not reward these places. I will keep a record of all the placements, so it's like a small personal bonus for for semi-casual players. So yeah, if everyone is a big fan of Tyranids, but you don't really have time to grind full 4 factions for ladder, but you still want to do something competitive, just hit me on Discord or maybe in the game chat when I hang out there. I do visit it a lot nowadays.
Cool.
So yeah,
there you go, guys. An invitation to become one of the Tyranid extraordinaires and play it with Shu. Yeah, that's cool. That's a good. That's one of the nice things about the ladder system, right? People can find their own objectives and goals within it. And I think that's a really good
yeah,
one.
definitely.
So we'll be looking at your faction when we're looking for Tyranid stuff going forward. All right, that's everything. Thank you so much, Shumatsu, for joining us once again. It's always a pleasure. Ecclesia, as always, thank you again. And we will see everybody in the next episode of FORGECAST. Ciao for now.
See you, boys.